Joe Rogan had one of the most eye-opening conversations about cult psychology I've ever heard. His guest breaks down why normal, intelligent people get sucked into groups like Heaven's Gate and Scientology, and it's not what you think. The scary part? The same psychological triggers that make someone join a cult are working on all of us right now. We're talking about our basic need for connection and status, and how charismatic leaders exploit that to get people to follow insane rules. Wait until you hear about the Heaven's Gate member who was actually jealous he didn't get to castrate himself, or why actors are especially vulnerable to groups like Scientology. This whole conversation will change how you see every group you're part of. Joe and his guest get into the tribal psychology behind all of this, and honestly, it explains so much about human behavior. Once you understand these patterns, you'll never look at social media, workplace dynamics, or even friend groups the same way. This is the kind of conversation that sticks with you. Here's the clip.
Nobody has any idea how the world works until they plug into a group. And the group has its stories that it tells about how the world works. Every group has its model of what a hero is, and this set of beliefs a hero has. And once we've plugged into that group, we orient ourselves towards becoming that person. And cults are interesting because cults are like, all human groups are kind of cults, but looser. So every human group is a status game in the sense that it's a group of people who believe the same things, and there's sort of rules for being part of that group. And the better you become at following those rules and becoming its ideal of self, the higher you rise up that status game. The only difference between cult and a religion and a business and a political group is just that it's much tighter. So the rules are much stricter. Like there's a zillion rules. Like I've written before about what they call there was the cult that they castrated themselves.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate, that's right. Yeah, and they had rules even about like how much toothpaste you're allowed to put on your toothbrush. They had a rule about exactly how scrambled eggs were to be cooked, and the rule was dry but not burnt. So there was a rule about how much water you put in your bathtub. And
was the leader was he castrated as well?
No, he wasn't, surprisingly enough.
Really?
Yeah, they were called T and Doe, and there he is, T. Yeah,
just imagine you are so low in your life that you think that's the guy that has all the answers.
Marshall Applewhite.
Is that a tribal thing? This is what I've always assumed, that's just some holdover from when we were a part of groups of 150 people that needed a leader. And generally that leader would be some old warlord. He's probably like 35, back then. But had gone through a lot and was a strong leader, was someone that you admired as a leader. And maybe in these tribal times, that's baked into our DNA. And when someone comes along and speaks confidently, I am never confident. I'm never confident about if you're so confident about all these thoughts and about what life is about and where we're going and what awaits us. And if you follow these rules, God, that's so confident. I'm not that confident. So I could get sucked in.
Yeah.
Any human could get sucked in. But is that what it's from? Is it from tribal times?
Yes and no. So one of the really surprising things about tribes, the tribes in which we evolved, is that idea of the big man is a bit of a myth. So they were kind of leaderless. Like leaders would bubble up by consensus when, say, we wanted to solve a particular problem to do with hunting. Then the best hunters would be deferred to. And what do you think?
But at some point in time, they became leaders. I mean, they've been leaders for so long.
When we settled down.
When was that? Like agriculture days?
Yeah, that was about 11,000 years ago.
But don't you think that's enough to bake it into our DNA?
I don't know. I think what is in our DNA is that idea of stories. So we're storytelling animals. We think in stories. Every tribe has its particular story about the world, and so we're very good at channeling those stories. And as I said, every story has its design of what is a hero, and we try and become that kind of hero. So that's that holdover from the tribal day. But more fundamentally, it's that brain question of, who do I have to be? What do I have to do? Tell me what I have to do in order to achieve connection and status. And that's what a cult does. And that's what a charismatic leader does. It tells you this is what you've got to do. These are the rules. This is who you have to become. And that's really seductive to us subconsciously, because those two things of connection and status are so incredibly important to us.
Yeah. Is it something you think should be taught like very early on? it seems like this is information we should get to kids as young as we can.
Yeah.
So they can recognize these patterns that people fall into.
Absolutely. I've always thought that there should be a lesson in school about what is a human, what is the basic operating system manual for a human, and these are the mistakes that humans make. Because, as I said, one of the sort of big ideas is that we're not particularly interested in the truth. The truth doesn't matter to human brains. What matters is what do I have to believe in order for people to like me and respect me.
Well, that's why religions, like even radical religions, are so intoxicating. Like, you have to be all in. You're part of a very special group, and you all love each other like brothers and sisters because you're part of this group.
Yeah.
And you can come up with some radical ideas and get people to subscribe to that, especially if you attach things like death for people who leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's you're operating in some red line territory. That's a wild group.
And the religions and the cults always do that thing of offering amazing rewards. But
of course,
at some point in the future,
bro, heaven, it's the best spot ever.
Yeah.
And the version of heaven differs between how bad the place where you live sucks.
Yeah, and it's like I think there's like 8.5 billion people in the world, and the amount of I think it's like 500 million atheists. So that just shows you how many, just how wired we are to believe basically any old shit we're told to believe, as long as we feel like it's going to get us status and secure connection into a supportive group.
I remember during the suicide bomber days, when that was something that was in the news all the time, they talked about 72 virgins. And that these gentlemen thought that they were going to get 72 virgins in heaven. Like, that is so cultural.
Yeah.
Like, if you offered 72 virgins to a Christian, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not fucking any virgins, you crazy psycho. How old are they? What are you saying? I'm not a pedophile, dude. I just like women.
Yeah.
What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? It's like...
but I'm not sure how... I don't know if that 72 virgins thing is true. I think
it could be like 21-year-old virgins that have been saved for this moment by the great one. I think that term is not real. I think the term 72 virgins is like saying how many times have you lost your phone? A fucking million.
Yeah,
it's like that kind of it's an exaggeration.
But I think the real promise there, though, the 72 virgins is but I think the real promise for suicide bombers is, again, its status. It's like if you sacrifice your life on behalf of the group's mission, you're a hero. You're like a god. Yeah, and so that's the promise. And again, I think it's a really good example of how human beings value status over their lives. Yeah. That's how much we value status. We're the only animal that kills ourselves, which is just a weird thing in itself. An animal would voluntarily end its own life. And very often the reason that people kill themselves is because it's a sudden drop in status, or they feel completely isolated and alone. So they're lacking in those essential kind of psychological resources to such an extent that they, end their own lives. And that's how much we value these things. And suicide bombers are another manifestation of that. Like if you're going to consider me a hero, and if Muhammad is going to consider me a hero, strap me up, brother. That's how much. That's how crazy we become about these social rewards.
God, that is such an insane belief. It's so insane, and when the most evil thing is when you hear about them talking kids into doing it.
Yeah.
A young child, you're getting what is the youngest suicide bomber they've ever used?
I don't know.
Just the idea that you can buy into it so much that you're willing to let your children go do that.
Yeah, but it's
wild.
It's evil if you think it's this kind of calculating, kind of mathematical algorithm of advantage, but they sincerely believe it.
Yes.
They really believe it's true.
Right.
I've been before I was an author, I was a journalist. I've been meeting kind of crazy people, including Nazis, as part of my journalistic career. That's one of the things that always strikes me, is that they really believe it. This crazy stuff.
They believe it.
So it's not evil in the sense that they're doing anything calculating by talking their children into being suicide bombers. They think they're doing something heroic.
Yes.
They think they're doing something amazing.
Yes.
As did the Nazis. As did the communists.
As did the KKK. People, they can fall into belief structures, and they don't necessarily have to make sense. But if they find enough supportive people around them that also believe that, then it becomes part of their tribe identity.
Yeah.
And it can be really stupid. Really stupid. We're fucking way more vulnerable than we like to believe. That's one of the things that I was saying, like when I watched those cult documentaries. Part of me is like, thank God I didn't run into those people. Thank God.
Yeah.
They would have got me.
And when they look at the psychology of people that are vulnerable to falling into cults, it's very often people that have struggled to fit into the status games of ordinary life.
Yeah.
So they've got, the family hasn't worked, the job hasn't worked, the hobbies haven't worked. So they've got no identity, they've got no tribe. So they're really vulnerable to these cults, because what cults offer is absolute certainty.
Yeah.
If you cook your scrambled eggs this way, if you only put 2 inches of water in your bath, you're going to, the UFOs will come down and they're going to take you to the level above. That's what they were offering to you, though, the level above human.
Wear the Nikes, though. Remember, you have to wear the purple Nikes?
But that's right.
Yeah,
and there's this crazy memoir of one of the guys who was in this group who he didn't cut his own balls off. He left before the ball cutting, but he was jealous. He wanted to have his balls cut, and there was only one person that could have it done at the beginning, and they flipped a coin, and he was really annoyed that he lost the coin flip.
Oh my God!
But what was interesting about his memoir was he said that people talk about brainwashing in cults, and people talk about how we were forced to follow these rules, but we wanted to follow the rules. Like, not following the rules would be like being a NASA astronaut and just not caring about how the space shuttle worked, so they're not, they don't consider themselves brainwashed. They consider themselves, well, they're just in a status game, like any other status game. It's just a very, very strict one.
Right. Well, that's why, one of the fascinating things about some cults is that they use very bizarre language and that they all agree to it. They have like specific terms that they say. Like, doesn't Scientologists, they'll call people, they have like an abbreviation for someone who's like a hostile person. What is it that they do? Because I remember someone was explaining to me, someone who left the church was explaining to me how, like, if someone would be hostile, you have like a very specific way you describe them, and that they all do it in the group, and it's like
suppressive persons.
That suppressive persons, yes, you're a suppressive person
or potential trouble source.
Dude, I ordered Dianetics in like 1994. I had just moved to LA, and I thought it was a self-help book. I was like, all right, fucking look at your brain's gonna explode. You gotta get your shit together. Look at all these people that are succeeding on Dianetics. I was 26 or whatever I was. So I ordered this book, and they've never stopped sending me things.
Oh, no.
I mean, they fucking never stopped sending me things.
Was there ever a point when you thought, hang on a minute, this is quite interesting? No. All right.
No. Once I realized it was Scientology, I was like, Dianetics is Scientology?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But then part of me was like, damn, a lot of these Scientologists are doing really well in Hollywood. Like, maybe that's a good cult to join.
Yeah.
Maybe if they just let me be me. Because it seems like that was part of it. There was a big allure of how many successful people were following that religion. I mean, some of the most successful actors. Tom Cruise is one of the most successful actors of all time, and he's literally the poster boy for that.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody was saying to me the other day that they thought that actors were particularly susceptible to Scientology because they've got this weird... They don't really have an identity, actors. They were always sort of slipping into different people's identities. I thought that was an interesting,
especially if you're really
theory.
Good.
Yeah.
You probably lose who the fuck you are. Who am I? Am I Rocky? Am I the Mission Impossible guy?
Well, when they're walking around, everybody treats them that way. Like, I'm sure they treat Stallone like he's Rocky. And you
got to give respect to Tom Cruise though, because Tom Cruise is like 60 years old and he still does his own stunts, including jumping a motorcycle off a cliff.
Yeah.
That's how much he believes in this stuff.
But that's why these groups are kind of functional as well. It's like I kind of have a weird kind of sympathy. Like I grew up in a very strict Catholic household with very strict Catholic parents, and I hated it. I was very rebellious as a teenager, and I guess in my 20s and 30s I was very, very atheist and hated religion. But then I kind of did a lot of this research, and once you accept that what humans need to be healthy psychologically and physically is connection and status, you see that's actually what religion provides people. That's what religion provides my parents.
Right.
They're connected into a community and they feel important.
Yeah.
They feel they're good Catholics because my dad conducts the choir and this, that, and the other. And so that's invaluable. That's what humans need to survive. And in our in the current world, in the huge populations in which we live, it's very hard to feel securely connected. I mean, as you said a moment ago, the tribes in which we evolved were very small, like 30 to 50 people. So it was quite easy to feel securely connected. It was quite easy in that environment to feel important, like valued by other people. I mean, probably it was not rare in the tribe to feel invaluable, like you're needed, because everybody was needed. There wasn't many people around to find the tubers and catch the rabbits or whatever. But in this day and age, in these huge groups in which we belong to, it's much harder to feel relative status because you're competing with millions of people, especially online. So, and I think that's a source of a huge amount of sort of misery in the modern world, of stress, sort of I call it identity anxiety, identity stress. We feel really unsatisfied with the amount of connection and status that we have because we exist in these fucking massive international tribes now.